Welcome to Somewhere and Elsewhere, Coastal Carolina Arts Podcast by Shoresides. I'm Kevin Levi Green. Coming up next, a Somewhere and Elsewhere special where we uncover stories from artists across the coastal region.
I'm Nicole Triche. I'm in Durham, North Carolina, and I'm an associate professor at Elon University full-time, as well as a documentary filmmaker. For me, I'm a visual learner. So I want to learn about maple trees. So I can read a book about learning about maple trees. I can read some articles about maple trees. I can maybe look at some photographs of maple trees. But when you put together moving pictures along with interesting information, for me, after I watch a documentary, I'm like, oh, now I've learned something about maple trees. And it really keeps me engaged. That's why I think that documentaries can really help people learn about anything, and they could be seen as a tool to help you learn more about something. That after you finish watching any documentary, hopefully you're like, oh, I learned about that. I learned about, this cult. I learned about police brutality. I learned about inequality. So hopefully you walk away actually learning something from each one of the documentaries that you watch. When I first started teaching documentary, students could see documentaries, they could rent them from video stores, which was a thing that happened. But that was it. And those were only big documentaries. There's only documentaries that got theatrical and DVD distribution. But now, with YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO, there's so many places where students can see documentaries. And so there's so many more documentaries being made. There used to be a lot fewer documentaries being made. And you could find them on PBS, you could find them on DVD, but now you can find them everywhere. The project that I'm working on right now takes place in King, North Carolina, which is not a large town in Stokes County, which is north of Winston-Salem. I'm from North Carolina. I grew up in North Carolina. I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Walnut Cove, North Carolina, which is also in Stokes County. So I think there are definitely stories there. And I think growing up in a small town has definitely influenced what I find interesting. And something that I personally find interesting are women who are doing unusual jobs. Your career, you're going to do that 40 hours a week for your whole working life. That's a huge chunk of your time. And so I'm really interested when people have unusual careers, like running a roller skating rink. Friends and I have been going to Topsail for vacation for a few years. And another friend, who's actually a documentary filmmaker, she said, you love to roller skate, which I do. She said, you should really go check out this roller skating rink. It's above the post office in Topsail Beach. So I went roller skating there. And then a few years later, but it never left me, the going roller skating there. And I went a few times over the years. And then I started reading about about Doris Jenkins. And I was like, oh, it's not a story about the rink. It's a story about Miss Doris. And so what I did was I would go down once, sometimes twice a month over the whole course of the season and do interviews with patrons, Miss Doris, family, and just be in the rink throughout the season. I do think that there isn't enough being done in local communities, but on the flip side, I think because of access to phones and to cheaper cameras and editing that you can do in your home, you don't have to go someplace else to make a film about your town. So I think that people in these towns could totally be making films about what's going on in their lives, their neighbors' lives, their communities' lives. So I think there is a great opportunity that tons of films could be made about rural North Carolina at the coast, for sure. People will understand, Joe from down the street and what he's going through. It's a lot easier to kind of understand. And really what Joe is going through down the street is probably a global issue, but you're just telling it from Joe's point of view, which I think is more interesting, and that more people can just understand what Joe is going through, where it might be harder for you to understand the global thing. But if you understand what Joe's going through, then you actually are understanding what's happening globally. So I don't know who originated the quote, but it definitely wasn't me. But they said that documentary is where art and journalism meet. So I think you have to tell the truth as you have found it. But what the great thing about documentary is, or one of the great things, is that you get to tell it in a cinematic way. That's where the art comes in documentary, is especially in the visuals that you can add and make it a movie so that you can watch it on a screen.
You've been listening to Somewhere and Elsewhere, a Coastal Carolina arts podcast on working narratives and Shoresides. Shoresides is a local journalism project serving the Coastal Carolinas and beyond. Know of a Coastal Carolina artist we should be covering? Contact us at info@shoresides.org. I'm Kevin Levi Green. Thank you for listening.